In a situation like this, just one phrase will suffice. Deja vu. Kindly let me explain. In 1963, Sir Muhammadu Sanusi I was the Emir of Kano. As the eldest son of Emir Abdullahi Bayero, he was a powerful traditional ruler with substantial influence in the colonial northern Nigeria. He even hosted the Queen Elizabeth II when she visited Kano in 1956. But the power tussle between him and his distant cousin, Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sultana of Sokoto, reportedly resulted in his dethronement and confinement in 1963. Now, deja vu, it's year 2020, and just like his grandfather, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi has been dethroned and banished to Nasarawa State. Prior to his becoming the Emir of Kano, Sanusi spoke passionately about the state of the nation and the economy of Nigeria. And since ascending the throne in 2014, following the death of his grand-uncle, Ado Bayero, Sanusi, as the Emir of Kano, accused political and religious leaders in the north of not doing enough for the region. Well, listen to this.
If you look at all the poverty indices in the world today, you'll find that in southwest Nigeria, the incidence of poverty is 20%. In the northwest, it is 80%. The northeast, it's 80%. Why is it that the poorest parts of this country are the Muslim parts? Why is it that in a state that started Sharia in 1999, and we just heard the opening verses today, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. This is the very first verse revealed in the Quran. How come that the state that started Sharia is not the one that is the most educated state? In fact, how come that in that state in 2017, only 24 children got 5 credits in secondary school? How do we define Sharia? How do we define Islam? Illiteracy? Malnutrition? Children on the streets? We have to ask ourselves. And we can't ask those questions until we begin to understand through usul that you have to live in this world well in order to serve Allah for the hereafter. For Islam to prosper, we need educated Muslims. We need Muslims that are not begging. We need Muslims who are standing on their feet. Believe me, if poverty continues in the north, Islam will disappear from the north.
Yeah. Well, one of the many outings of the deposed Emir there. And former Emir of Kano has finally broken his silence. In his reaction, Muhammadu Sanusi II says he considers his dethronement as the will of God. In a video recording on Tuesday, Sanusi, who spoke in Hausa, asked the people of Kano to support the new Emir.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah.
One of the blessings I have received from Almighty Allah is that He made me the Emir of Kano on the 8th of June 2014. He kept me alive and healthy for almost 6 years on the throne of our blessed heritage. Today, Almighty Allah that made me the Emir has destined and taken it away. We have always said it, that being an Emir is limited by time. The days Allah has willed for one to remain as Emir are limited. Once those days are complete, one must vacate the throne whether he wants to or not. As a result of that, we accept whatever Allah wills. We accept, we are thankful, and we are happy, and we believe it is the best for us. We wish to thank the people of Kano for their cooperation in all these years, for the love, loyalty, obedience, and prayer they have shown us. We wish to thank all those that have assisted us during our reign, especially the members of our council and the chiefs that were loyal to us. We are also thankful to our relations who stood firmly in preserving our dignity and the dignity of this emirate. We wish to call on the public to remain peaceful. Whosoever is made the emir, we hereby instruct our family members, children, and all those we have authority on to declare their allegiance to him. They should respect him, protect his dignity and integrity and that of the emirate. This is because his dignity and integrity is the dignity and integrity of this emirate as well. We call on fellow Muslims to continue with the prayers they have been on all this year, that Allah blesses our dear land, Kano, with peace and tranquility. May Allah bless you all, keep you alive, and enrich our dear land. May He bless us with good leaders. May Allah bless this emirate and our country at large. May He return back our land to us. We thank you. Thank you, and thank you so much as we depart happily, peacefully, and thankfully.
The dethroned Emir of Kano breaking the silence there moments ago in that video. Well, earlier during our flagship program, The Morning Show, Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and Professor Munzali Jibril, an indigene of Kano State and a former Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission, as well as former Deputy Vice Chancellor of Bayero University, Kano, discussed more on the dethronement and banishment of Muhammadu Sanusi II.
As far as the law is concerned, the governor has been removed without due process. As if that was not sufficient, his right to liberty, his right to locomotion, freedom of movement, have been violated. He's now been banished. And contrary to his own wishes, he's been restricted to Loko in Nasarawa State. And again, our law is very clear on this point. As far back as during the colonial regime, when Eshugbayi Eleko was posed and banished by the colonial regime, the case was fought up to the Privy Council, and I remember that Lord Atkins made the point that even under a colonial regime, a subject had this human rights, should have his human rights respected. And on that ground, a writ of habeas corpus was allowed. Of course, the colonial secretary, Cameron, had to ensure that the Oba of Lagos was restored to his throne. That was under the colonial regime. The recent case of the Emir of Gwandu, Alhaji Jokolo, in fact, incidentally, was also restricted. After he had been deposed, his movement was restricted to Nasarawa State. But the Court of Appeal made the point abundantly clear that no governor has the power to violate the human rights of Nigerians except in accordance with the Constitution. Again, this is what is going on. One would have expected the Attorney General of Kano State, who was likely to have attended that meeting, to draw the attention of the governor and members of the executive to this development under our law.
Thank you, sir. Now, I'd like to bring a bigger picture into this about Emir Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, as a person himself anyway. We can go back to when he was governor of the central bank and he had accused the government of the day of about $20 billion in funds being diverted, etc., and he was kicked out of the central bank. As Emir, he's someone that was known to be very outspoken, especially even on social matters as well, questioning culture, etc. And it sort of posed a threat, I would say, to a large northern elite. Now, looking at this situation, it looks as though it's very hard to be outspoken and actually hold a position or succeed in Nigeria today. And that's a huge problem that we're facing here. What options do you think are best for Emir Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi at this point? Do you think really he should go to court and contest this? Or do you think maybe he should move on? There are bigger and better options for him. Maybe he, you know, people are saying could even run for president, as many people would wish for someone like him because he's very exposed, he's very outspoken on, you know, progressive things. What is your take on this larger picture?
Well, there's no doubt that the Emir, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, has always been a very controversial figure. Under the deformed military junta, he was detained for months, you know, I think particularly under the Sani Abacha junta, as a governor of the central bank. He was no doubt controversial, which perhaps led to the allegation he made concerning disappearance of $20 billion. Yes, he has been very vocal, and he's been a radical emir. But I think Sanusi Lamido Sanusi wasn't quite prepared for the kind of battle he took on. You know, if you are going to fight the establishment, the ruling class, you have to get more organized, and I think that has been missing. While he was trying to defend the people in northern Nigeria and the oppressed people in our country, he also was operating like many of us, members of the elite, without forging an organic alliance with the people they oppressed. And so, for that reason, he clearly ran into problems.
My own personal view is that he's going to be on sabbatical for between 1 and 3 years. I believe that either he or other stakeholders will go to court, because even his deposition did not follow the due process of the bad law that the government itself, as the governor himself assented to. The chieftaincy law of Kano of 2019 provides for the deposition of an emir on the recommendation of the kingmakers after establishing misconduct. Now, the kingmakers in Kano are 4, and 2 of them found themselves in 2 of the 4 new emirates, and of course refused to pay allegiance to their new emirs. So they were still functioning as Kano kingmakers. But they themselves, as a group, the 4 of them, had instituted a court case against the government based on the new law, complaining about the bastardization of history in the creation of the new emirates. So you could say they were not on speaking terms with the government. And so they have not met, and they have not established, because actually 2-3 days ago, there was an order from the government to the former emir to post the kingmakers to appropriate districts within his new domain, which he did not do. I think this was to be preparatory to there being someone to hold a meeting to find him guilty of misconduct. So the emir did not do that, therefore they did not meet. And so the basis on which the Executive Council of the state went ahead to depose the emir is legally shaky. But this is for the lawyers and the courts to say. But my own personal belief is that there will be litigation, the validity and legality of the deposition will be tested. Given the slow speed of our own legal system, it may take up to 3 years. But in the end, the courts will find that the government did not follow its own law, because misconduct has to be established. And if you say it has to be on the recommendation of the kingmakers, then it has to be on the recommendation of the kingmakers. If there was no such recommendation, you cannot jump the process. You see, politicians are so desperate, so intoxicated by power, that they actually forget to follow these little steps, which the courts find unacceptable. In order to defend the integrity of the legal system, the courts will undo whatever has been done when the due process of the law has not been followed.
Well, views expressed earlier on in our flagship program, The Morning Show. But while this is on, there is a new emir in town. Yes, Aminu Ado Bayero has been named the new emir of Kano, replacing Muhammadu Sanusi II. Abba Anwar, Chief Press Secretary to Abdullahi Ganduje, Governor of Kano State, disclosed this in a statement. Ado Bayero was the emir of Bichi, one of the emirates that Governor Ganduje created after he fell out with Sanusi. Well, Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeli joins me now in the studio for more on this story. Emmanuel, great to have you.
Good afternoon, Adesuwa.
Just taking a special look at what has happened in the last 24 hours thereabout. Are you surprised? I mean, a lot of people have talked about the legality or the illegality of what has happened, but there you have the deposed emir saying, this is the will of God. I mean, he's taking this in good strides, isn't he?
Well, we saw this coming, because over the weekend, the number of newspapers reported that the removal of Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II was just a matter of time. And the first working day of the week, that happened. And he seemed to have taken it with equanimity, calmness, as you can see from the speech which he gave after his removal. Yes, his history repeating itself. Grandfather was removed in similar circumstance, and now he too is out of power. But has he really taken it with such calmness that it is over? Thank the Almighty God, Allah, who gave him the opportunity to sit on that throne, because it's something he desired all the while in his public life, and he did not hide it. That was his goal. Whether you want to call it ultimate goal, I leave that to people's interpretation.
Yes.
But he desired it, he got it, and now it's out. But if you just look at the very last paragraph of his statement, it seems we've not heard the last of this, because while he said, may Allah bless you all, keep you alive, and enrich our dear land. May he bless us with good leaders. I don't know the leaders he's talking about.
He didn't miss an opportunity to also talk about leadership here again.
That may Allah bless us with good leaders. So Kanu can still get good leaders that will turn things around. Then he went further to say, may Allah bless the emirate and our country at large. May he return back our land to us.
What was he implying there? Which land was taken from them? Which land is to be returned?
Well, that statement is loaded. And we've heard from other commentators, if he decides to challenge his removal in court, will there be a basis? The courts will decide on that.
Perhaps that's the land. But let me ask you, Sanusi, reformer or dissident?
Well, a radical monarch.
Radical monarch?
Yes.
Given the power of hindsight, those who criticize him to say, you can be an emir and an activist at the same time. Do you think he could have done this differently? His method, his approach to governance and those in government, the criticisms?
Well, I believe that with the kind of reformist ideas he had, being an emir of Kano couldn't have been the right place, because as emir, you can do so much, so little. You don't have the political power. The emir is under the local government chairman. The local government pays his salary. political power can just shove you aside. So if you want to be a reformer, you seek political power. And he had the capacity to be a leading light in politics, but he chose to be a monarch. So when you are a monarch, there are benefits, there are burden. One of the burden is that you don't talk like a radical.
Okay, so now that that toga has been removed by the action of Governor Ganduje and the State House of Assembly yesterday, do you see Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, becoming a full-time activist?
Well, I think first he will need to clear this toga of removal.
Okay.
Whether it was properly removed or not. I'm sure if I were to be one of his advisors, I would say, let's challenge this in court, even if I cannot get back the throne, but let the court decide whether I was properly removed or not. And once that is decided, it can give him the platform or the lever to move up to other things.
Let's talk about the politics of this. There are those who say, you know, this all dates back to 2017. There are those who say this is because of the re-election of Governor Ganduje, where the Emir at the time sided with the opposition. But it also seemed as if Governor Ganduje was trying to whip into line the Emir. Do you think the traditional rulers in Kano State and in Nigeria in general, watching what has happened to Emir Sanusi, would henceforth be seen and not be heard?
Well, royal fathers, monarchs are fathers to all. On no account should they be seen to be partisan. And because they are at the mercy of political authority, if there's any tinge of partisanship in their action, of course, you are likely to see the repercussion from the other end. I think that is what is also playing out here. And if you look at history of how politicians remove monarchs in the past, Luo for Rejua II, the Olowo for war, and of course his own father, it was clash with political authority in the space. So royal fathers, traditional rulers are not to be partisan, and any tinge of partisanship is likely to bring you in confrontation with the political authority.
But going forward, are the traditional rulers not closest to the people? And it's one of the reasons given by Governor Ganduje in creating those additional emirates to say, these are closer to the people. They exert some level of influence, traditionally, culturally, because of what they symbolize. Yes. Shouldn't we empower them more?
Yes, I agree with you. That is why there has been this clamor for constitutional provision for traditional rulers to have a role to play, because they have influence over the people. They can exert that influence over the people, yet they don't have constitutional backing to exert that authority. So when they do, by way of expressing preference for leadership in the state, it brings them in confrontation with political authority. So going forward, I agree that perhaps the Constitution should be amended to create a role for traditional rulers in Nigeria.
And finally, let me ask you, because a lot of people have wondered why Mr. President is so silent in all of this. Do you think that Governor Ganduje, the constituted authorities in Kano State, could have done this without the backing of Mr. President?
Well, it has nothing to do with the president. Any governor can deal with that matter at the state level. And I don't think there's any constitutional role for the president to play there.
Well, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Emmanuel Efeni, Arise News analyst, for taking a special look at this rather, well, special development in Kano State at this time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.